Arab fighters killed babies, boys, and men in war on Sudan tribe, mothers allege. Let's go here to the text. More than 40 Sudanese mothers from the embattled Masalit tribe detailed how their children, mostly boys, were shot, beaten, or knifed to death by fighters in the Arab-dominated RSF paramilitary and allied militias. The tribe's leader alleges this year's attacks are part of a campaign to exterminate his people. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, filming this video live from Budapest, Hungary. Now, the reason we are covering Sudan today is that many stories in Africa are going underreported in mainstream media, and that's why we are bringing more light to these stories that are floating around on the internet, because people need to know about them. Also, as well, I recently did a video on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and unfortunately, two Tanzanian citizens were murdered by Hamas fighters on October 7th. And that video is blowing up. It's possibly going to get 1,000 views or maybe more. Many people are in my comment section, presumably from Tanzania or other parts of Black Africa, and they are attacking me for my views on attacking Hamas and the anti-blackness that exists in Palestinian society. Well, if you care so much about other people's lives, other people's conflicts that have nothing to do with your own, why aren't we talking about the conflict that is raging in Sudan? Now, in most of my videos, we start off with a map because most people don't know basic geography. Sudan was one of the largest countries in Africa. It still is, and many of the countries are unbelievably large in Africa. Sudan is this nation right here that once included this part called South Sudan, but they broke away, I believe, in 2011 or 2012, and they are now an independent nation. Sudan is this very large majority Muslim nation up here that is split between blacks and Arabs. Arabic is the dominant language there. They follow Sunni Islam. The Nile River flows through here. Khartoum is the capital. And unfortunately, in Sudan, a civil war has been raging that the rest of the world has sort of turned their back on. We all can get real riled up about Israel and Palestine. We can all wave Palestinian flags or Zionist Israeli flags, but nobody cares about the loss of life in Sudan, where Arab militias are running around slaughtering black people. Y'all care more about what's happening in Palestine than you do actually about black people being killed in Sudan by Arabs running around with machine guns, chopping off babies' heads with machetes and that sort of stuff. Let's get into this story from Reuters. This was written by Maggie Michael, visuals by El Tayeb Siddiq, published on December 15th, 2023. The Arab militiamen were hunting for boys that day. That's how they found a 2-year-old Ibrahim Saleh. Ibrahim, his baby sister, and their mother, Safa Abdel Karim, were on the run in June, fleeing a weeks-long massacre in the Sudanese city of El Janina. Arab militiamen had shot, stabbed, and burned to death members of their tribe, the darker-skinned Masalit people. Abdel Karim's husband was among the dead, along with dozens of women and children. She and her kids were trying to make it to safety in neighboring Chad. They almost did. About 10 kilometers from the border, she said Arab paramilitary forces and militiamen stopped them and ordered her to hand over Ibrahim. They looked inside his clothes to inspect his sex, then set him down and began bashing his head and body with wooden rods. This is absolutely horrible that mothers are going through this. Their sons are being taken away from them just because they're young boys who could possibly fight in the war against them later on in life. This is absolutely horrible and tragic that this is happening in Black Africa amongst Muslims who say that it's all about peace, it's all about submission and all that sort of stuff. And as a Muslim myself, I am absolutely horrified to hear these stories by people who know the Arabic language, can read the Quran in its original text, yet and still they do this sort of savagery and barbarity to their fellow citizens and also to a people who have historically been discriminated against, black people on the planet. This is a video. This is a picture here of Safa Abdel Karim speaking in a refugee camp in Chad. She said her 2-year-old son was beaten to death by RSF and Arab militia forces as she fled a massacre earlier this year. They said, if the boy grows up, he will fight us, she recalls the men shouting. He was crying. Mama, Mama, Abdel Karim said. When she tried to rescue him, one of the men shot her below the shoulder, she said, leaving a scar from the wound. I kept screaming to leave my son. Don't kill my son. The men kept striking Ibrahim. You, Zerga, won't stay in El Janina, the men shouted, using a racist term for darker skinned people like the Masalit. They said if the boy grows up, he will fight us. Let's keep this real, guys. In the Arab world, they use anti-black slurs like describing the color of the sky or what's the weather today. Zerga, Zenchi, Zezek, Abd, Zanj, all these slurs that we've spoken about on this channel before. These are used widely in the Arab world, even directly to the faces of black people, and they accept it as okay. It's absolutely not okay to refer to any black person or any person, period, despite what their skin tone might be, by slurs at all, period. It's not okay to use it as jokes. It's not okay to use it amongst your friends or amongst yourself. No, it's not okay to use slurs. And listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I've used them myself, but I can realize that it's wrong, and it's not something that I want to be a proponent of or say that people should do. It's absolutely wrong, especially to black people. Absolutely horrible. Bleeding from her wounds and with her daughter in her arms, Abdel Karim said she kept trying to stop the attack on Ibrahim, but the men continued beating him until he lay dead. Abdel Karim was one of more than 40 mothers who described to Reuters how their children, mostly boys, were killed by Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, RSF paramilitary, and its allied Arab militias during an ethnically targeted killing campaign this year in and around the West Darfur capital of El Janina. Once again, I have to say this, for all the black people attacking me because I spoke up for the two Tanzanians who were killed by Hamas and against the anti-black racism that permeates the Arab world. Y'all got all that smoke from me, but y'all are silent about the Arabs slaughtering black people in Sudan, on the own continent, on the African continent. This is happening in 2023 and probably will continue in 2024. Yet and still, y'all want to come for me in my comment section talking about how dare you speak out against Palestinians slaughtering Tanzanians? How dare you speak out about anti-black racism in the Arab world? Y'all got all that smoke from me, but y'all are silent about Arabs running around killing 2-year-old babies, snatching them out their mother's hands, and calling them racial slurs while they beat her baby to death. Look in the mirror before y'all come and try to look for me. Let's go. Her son and the other children were all part of the Masalit tribe, which was a majority in the El Janina until the RSF and Arab militias forced them out. Around 500,000 people, mostly Masalit, have left for Chad as a result of the violence. Thousands have died in the attacks. The dead include women and girls. Masalit women also have described enduring sexual assault at the hands of the Arab-dominated RSF and its allies, as Reuters detailed last month. But in the killing sprees, witnesses say Arab forces have specifically targeted males for death from infants to adults. Think how sick you have to be in your mind to look at a baby and say, you know what, he could become a man one day, so we're going to eliminate him, wipe him off of the face of the earth. This is barbaric. This is like old Bible. This is like Old Testament justice or vengeance or warfare that we saw, happening 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. In 2023, this is still happening, and it's being perpetrated by people who claim that they do it in the name of Deen, for Allah, for their ethnic tribe or religion or these sorts of things. It's absolutely horrible that this continues to happen, and the world is silent. I won't be. Let's go here. A boy overlooks a refugee camp near the Chad-Sudan border. Hundreds of Masalit families from Sudan's West Darfur state are at the camp after being driven across the border in an ethnically targeted campaign by Arab forces. About 500,000 people, mostly Masalit, have fled Sudan for Chad. 36 of the mothers told Reuters their children were shot from close range, 33 of them boys and 8 girls. 6 of the mothers said they watched as their children, some as young as 6 months old, were beaten to death by RSF and Arab militia fighters. 5 of the 6 children killed this way were boys. The killers used knives too. 10 people who escaped to Chad told Reuters they saw children having their throats slit. All were boys. Most of these children were killed as they fled with their mothers from El Janina. En route to Chad, 5 survivors described seeing militiamen stop women with babies, check the child's sex, and kill it if it turned out to be a boy. Masalit men were also hunted down by the RSF and its allies. In the most recent round of violence in El Janina in early November, Reuters revealed that hundreds of young Masalit men were rounded up and taken to various locations in the city where eyewitnesses said some of them were executed. More than 30 women interviewed for this report said their husbands, brothers, or fathers were killed or went missing in the year's attacks. Several women said they hid their brothers or smuggled them out of El Janina for fear they would be targeted. Dozens of men recounted how they cut through valleys and traveled along remote routes to Chad to evade checkpoints set up by the RSF and Arab militias. 5 survivors told Reuters they saw militiamen stop women with babies, check the child's sex, and killed it if it turned out to be a boy. Reuters was unable to independently corroborate the details of some accounts. In some cases, friends and neighbors confirmed elements of the survivors' stories. Common patterns also emerged from the descriptions of the violence given by survivors. For some people, Reuters was able to review registration cards issued for refugees by the United Nations. UN workers in Chad have so far collected demographic data on more than a quarter of the 484,000 refugees who have fled Sudan this year and now reside in camps along the border. Based on this data, the UN estimates nearly twice as many adult females as males have crossed the border. Despite the targeting of males, the gap is less pronounced among children, where there is almost parity between the number of boys and girls. Several mothers of slain children, as well as other witnesses, said the militiamen made clear why they were targeting Masalit boys. They wanted to be sure the children wouldn't grow up to be fighters and one day seek revenge on the attacks on the Masalit. Everybody's concerned about ethnic cleansing happening in the Middle East. Oh, what's going to happen to the people of Gaza? Oh, stand with Gaza, solidarity with Palestine. But nobody has nothing to say about the ethnic cleansing happening to these black people in Sudan. 484,000 people were made refugees. 484,000 people were made refugees in Chad, right next door to Sudan, running for their lives because the Arabs are running around killing the boys, killing little children, sexually assaulting women, and that sort of stuff. And we're all silent. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this, right? This won't get as many views as me talking about Israel-Palestine. Everybody cares about what happens to the Palestinians, but nobody cares about what happens to actual literal black children getting slaughtered just because they happen to be Masalit and black in this Arab-dominated nation. Going to continue here. Aziz Adem Mohammed, 28, said her 6-month-old son was shot and killed on June 14th as they fled to Chad with a group of other refugees. When Arab militiamen confronted the group, she said, they shouted, shoot the boys. I heard them saying that the boys will grow up and they will kill us, she said, so we must destroy them now. A trail of blood and fear, the escape route taken by hundreds of thousands of Masalit in fleeing Sudan. Arab forces specifically hunted down and killed male infants, boys, and adults along the way. Dozens of survivors told Reuters. So this is the border right here. Here's El Janina, and they're heading over here to the international border with Chad. Civilians flee towards Chad. Shukri, multiple mothers said their children were killed near this village. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So, Anna Scatone, an emergency protection officer at the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in the Chadian border town of Adre, said the targeting of males also has a more far-reaching goal. The objective of the killing seems to be the elimination of future fighters, as well as the line of ancestry of a specific ethnic group, Scatone said. Masoud Mohammed Yusuf, the coordinator of an umbrella group that represents some of the Arab tribes in El Janina, said the Masalits are fabricating stories to sway public opinion. The accusation that Arab militias and the RSF targeted male Masalit children and adults was baseless, he said. Why would a mother lie about her children dying? Why would a mother lie that tossed her child and beat him over the head. Why would any mother lie about that? If a mother knows that she has two kids and one of the boys was taken from her, there's no reason to lie about that. Nobody wants to lie about that. It makes no sense. The only Masalites who were killed in the fighting in El Janina, he added, were armed fighters. The rest of society, they lived, he said. Arab tribal leaders have previously blamed the Masalit for instigating the violence. The RSF didn't respond to questions from Reuters. In prior statements, the paramilitary has said it wasn't involved in what it called a tribal conflict in El Janina. The war against the Masalites erupted amid a broader conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF, partners in a 2021 coup that crushed hopes for a transition to democracy in Sudan. They began battling in the capital Khartoum in April after splitting over how to apportion power in a proposed shift toward civilian rule. In early December, the United States determined that both the RSF and the Sudanese army have committed war crimes since fighting broke out and spread to Darfur. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the RSF, which draws its forces largely from Arab groups and its allied militias, have also committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. Both the army and the RSF have blamed each other for any abuses committed in the war. I want to talk about this very quickly. There might be some people who jump into the comments and say, Sudan is Arab, but what they consider Arab, the rest of the world might consider black. They might be very, very dark-skinned people, maybe blacker than me, who speak Arabic. That is not the point. The point is not that they are light-skinned people or white people. What they are doing is practicing white supremacy, because all people can practice white supremacy by specifically targeting a darker-skinned group of people who happen to be black Africans, while also yelling out racial slurs as they beat their babies to death. No, some of the people might be light-skinned Arabs or light-skinned by Sudanese standards. Other people might be dark black Africans who identify as Arab and that sort of stuff. All of that is white supremacy too, because that infects their mind and makes them think that they are not black Africans, or that they are not black, and that they identify more with Arab ethnicity than they do the black race. That's what I'm saying here. Either way, attacking and killing innocent babies and children and little boys, and sexually assaulting mothers who are trying to flee for safety as a country is torn apart by civil war is not okay at all. And lastly, I have to say this once again. I will reiterate: where are all the people in the comments who wanted to wave Palestinian flags and stand up for the Arab cause and advocate for the Arabs to take back Palestine? But you have nothing to say about people who identify as Arab slaughtering black people in Sudan. Literally taking babies and beating them over the head. You have nothing to say about that, right? My comment section is going up and the views are going crazy on the Palestine video I did, but this one, I don't know, maybe 5 views, 10 views, and that sort of stuff. What does that say about you? What does that say about you? I'm going to continue here. Clubbed to death. Abdullah Omar Abdullah, a Sudanese army soldier, said he was on the run with a group of 16 other Masalit men in early November. They were heading by car through the mountains west of El Janina toward Chad. Abdullah had just escaped his army base in Ardamata, a district on the outskirts of El Janina. The base had been overrun by RSF forces as the paramilitary consolidated its hold on the city. As the group made its way through the mountains, RSF and Arab militia forces ambushed them and opened fire. Abdullah was struck in the hand by a bullet and flung from the car. Clutching the wound to stop the bleeding, he slid into a ditch as he tried to evade the attackers. Abdullah began to shake visibly as he described what he saw next from his hideout. Uniformed RSF forces and Arab militiamen were stopping Masalit women on the same route who were heading for Chad with babies on their backs. The militiamen aimed their guns at the mothers and ordered them to hand over the children. The gunmen then opened the babies' clothes to check their sex. If they found it was a boy, they shot them right away, said Abdullah. The babies were so small, so small. Abdullah said he saw 3 babies killed this way. I couldn't do anything, he said, as tears began to roll down his cheeks. What I have seen is terribly sad, he added. Then he covered his face with his hands and walked away. Absolutely tragic that he has to suffer and live with that, to see a baby die right in front of you. Absolutely tragic. And what even is the logic of killing the children, of killing babies, as if the mother can't have another child, and then what, she's not going to tell her newborn son when he grows up, hey, you know, you did have a brother, but he was killed by the Arab militiamen because he was a boy. You don't think that's going to then breed more hatred into that man as well? So this is the thing. Violence begets violence, and we need to move towards a world where we settle our disputes with words. Even if you don't like anything I have to say, we can settle our disputes with words, and it does not have to resort to fists. It does not have to resort to violence. Violence should only be reserved at the very, very minimum, at the very last straw, at the very last option on the table. Other than that, we can resolve everything with words. But to say that a person, you know, won't become mad later on down in life, as if these tragedies won't be passed down generationally, and that hatred for these people won't be passed down because they took the lives of others, is absolutely untrue. So they're shooting themselves in the foot by, you know, taking the lives of these little children. And I'm referring to the RSF. Let's go here. Four of the people who fled to Chad also told Reuters they saw RSF forces and Arab militiamen undressing babies to check their sex. So many people are verifying this story and validating this experience. So nobody can come here and say, oh, this is fake. I would play the videos, but I don't want to get a copyright strike, so we're going to read the text. But the link to this article will be in the description for anybody that wants to read the videos. Maimuna Ababakar, I'm so bad with names, 25, and her 9-month-old daughter narrowly escaped with their lives twice as they fled El Janina on June 15th. First, she said they were surrounded by a group of knife-wielding Arab militiamen. The men forced Ababakar to take her baby off her back, then removed the child's clothes. It's a girl, Abubakar recalls screaming. She snatched her baby back, and the men allowed her to go. A few kilometers later, she was stopped again by armed men, and her baby was checked once more. In an effort to save their sons, some mothers dressed them in women's clothes. When Awatif Adam, a 43-year-old mother of 7, fled to Chad in mid-June, she hedged her bets. Adam said she left one son and 3 daughters with relatives and neighbors in the city, while she headed to Chad with another son and 2 daughters. She hoped this would ensure that at least some of her children survived. Knowing Arab militiamen were targeting Masalit males for the journey to Chad, she dressed her 12-year-old son, Fayez, in a headscarf and a black abaya, the full-length robe worn by some Muslim women. For part of the journey, the ruse worked. Fayez passed undetected through several checkpoints manned by RSF and Arab militia forces. But when they got to Shukri, a village about 10 kilometers from the Chad border, their luck ran out. Adam said 5 men, 2 in RSF uniforms and 3 in traditional robes, spotted Fayez and surrounded him. Slaves, this is our land, they shouted. See, I told you, in the Arab world, they call black people slaves to their face. To their face. Slaves, said the RSF commander. This is our land, they shouted. Get out. Then they lifted Fayez's abaya. Underneath, he was wearing a green shirt and black trousers. They immediately began to beat him with wooden rods. The first few blows broke his arm, which dangled limply by his side, said Adam. She managed to grab the boy away from the militiamen, but they quickly snatched him back. They ordered him to crawl on the ground and kept striking him. Adam watched as they beat Fayez to death, smashing his head. This is horrible. This is even traumatic just to read. And I apologize for anybody who might be triggered by this or having some emotional problems by hearing these stories. It's very hard to hear about literal babies being murdered like this. But we have to remember that this is what white supremacy creates. This is what Arab nationalism creates. This is what anti-blackness looks like. This is what anti-blackness sounds like. This is how the majority of the Arab world has treated black people throughout history. So we should not be afraid to confront it. And we need to be cognizant of this. We need to value all black life. We need to not dismiss these stories. We need to not get caught up in other people's problems, other people's conflicts. Who cares about what's happening in Ukraine? Who cares about what's happening in Palestine? We need to be worried about what's happening to black people. And right now there is literal ethnic cleansing. Let's make this clear. Ethnic cleansing of an entire tribe of black people by racist Arabs in the Sudan. But y'all want me to wave that Palestinian flag. Y'all want me to wave that Zionist flag. I ain't got no time to raise no other flags when I should be raising this black fist and using my words, using my platform to speak out about these evil atrocities that are happening to our people. That's what I'll be doing. Anyway, the last words I heard Fayez shouting were, "Mama, leave." She said. Her son, she said, had been trying to protect her. Next to his body lay two other young Masalit men in their 20s, Adam said. She had watched as they too were clubbed to death. Adam had raised Fayez from the age of 3 when his mother, her sister-in-law, died. He used to bring the girl biscuits and sweets, she recalled. He would sit on the mat and say to the girls, "Whoever gives me a kiss on the cheek gets a biscuit." That's kind of cute. It's absolutely cute. Wow. What a life lost. What a life lost. All black life is sacred. All black life is sacred. All black life is sacred. Losing the land. Abdullah, the Sudanese soldier who described the child killings, had been in the army for 9 years until he fled. He said he joined the military because of the history of attacks on his people. A Masalit from West Darfur, he said none of his earliest memories are of being attacked because of his ethnicity. He recalls being targeted by Arab militias as far back as the 1990s when he was 8 years old and his family was attacked in the village near El Janina. Militiamen on horseback stormed the village, looting it and setting it on fire, he said. His family fled. They used to call us slaves. I told you there was no government to protect us, as it is in all of the Arab countries. In all of the Arab countries from Morocco, Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, the black people live unprotected by the government. They live in ghettos. They live in squalor. They are given the scraps, kept in the slums, and called slaves to their face. But y'all want me to wave the Palestinian flag. Get the F out of here. Anyway, they used to call us slaves, said the black man. There was no government to protect us, he said. Interviewed in a hospital in Adre, where he was getting a treatment last month for his injured hand. I joined the army to protect my people. West Darfur is the historic homeland of the Masalit. They claim ownership of an area that includes both the Sudanese state of West Darfur and eastern Chad. It is known as Dar Masalit, meaning the home of the Masalit. In the late 19th century, the Masalit, who traditionally were farmers, established a sultanate in the area. The history of Dar Masalit is punctuated with conflict. In the early 20th century, for instance, the tribe fought the advance of French colonizers. Pardon, guys. In the early 20th century, for instance, the tribe fought the advance of French colonizers. The current sultan of the Masalit, Saad Bahreddin, told Reuters in an interview that the Masalit spread false rumors that the tribe's fighters were cannibals. That made the French soldiers fearful of the Masalit. The sultan's powers, prominent Masalit say, included collecting levies from farmers during the harvest time and mediating tribal disputes. They also allocated land to other tribes to live on and work on while maintaining ownership. That's very interesting. So the Masalits have a history of fighting against white supremacy, fighting against French colonizers who came there to try to take over this black African nation. And these people always stood strong. They sound like noble people. They sound like good people. They sound like, how we imagine the African tribes before the corruption of colonialism and slavery and all the tragedies that have befallen our people. They sound very ideal just from these two paragraphs. I don't want to whitewash their history. Who knows? Maybe they waged illegal warfare in the past. Maybe they committed acts of slavery upon other groups of people. I don't know all that. But even if they did do that, no group of people deserve the evil that is happening to these people now. Nobody deserves for their children to be pulled out of their arms and shot or beaten to death just because they're boys or just because a conflict is happening. It doesn't matter who that is. And that includes Zionist Israelis, that includes white Americans who are descended from slavery, slave owners and that sort of stuff. Nobody deserves evil or hatred or violence befalling children. Nobody. We are absolutely against violence happening to children or people being punished for what their ancestors did. I want to make this clear. Nobody should be punished for what their ancestors did, even if the Masalit did this. I hate to bring this up after they told their noble history, but I have to make this clear because who knows? Somebody might come in the comments and say, you don't know the Masalits. They were the most evil tribe ever, according to their logic. But even if that's the case, nobody deserves what is happening to them. And the ethnic cleansing that's happening to these people is completely unjustified. So in the 1990s, however, the government of President Omar al-Bashir, like its predecessors, led a campaign to Arabize Sudan as a way of cementing its hold on power. It engineered demographic changes by dividing the land between multiple tribes, a move that weakened the power of the Sultan. Among them were Arab nomads who migrated from Chad during times of famine and settled in West Darfur, fueling competition over scarce resources like land and water, which spurred conflict. Very interesting. So the Arabs are new booties to the area. The Masalits have been there for a long time, but just like traditional white supremacists, they move into an area after wherever they came from didn't work out, and now they are inflicting harm on the indigenous people of the land. So Sudan's former president Omar al-Bashir at a courthouse in Khartoum after his overthrow in 2019. His government sought to Arabize the Darfur region, a policy that helped uproot the Masalit. Once again, I'm going to go back to my previous point. We see Omar al-Bashir here. He has generally the same skin tone as me. We look pretty similar in the skin tone. You know, if we were both under the sun, we would get equally as dark. So some people might be saying, well, this isn't, racist because the people there are black themselves. But racism can be practiced, especially anti-blackness and white supremacy can be practiced by people who are non-white. This should be absolutely clear. Arab supremacy can be practiced by people who are non-white. So the same thing goes here. And whatever the racialization or racial categories that exist in Sudan that make this man right here be seen as Arab or this man be seen here as Arab, it does not change the fact that the evil that's inflicted on the Sudanese mothers who had their children beaten to death is inflicted in the name of Arab supremacy. It just says here, Omar Bashir tried to Arabize the region. He identifies more as an Arab, as we can see with his clothing and that sort of stuff. He probably wants the nation to identify more with Arab or Muslim identity than it does the black indigenous religions or identity there, or Christianity, God forbid. You get what I'm saying? So this is what I'm making the point. This is the point I'm trying to make here. Whether if we were to look at the perpetrators here and say, oh no, they're not white, so they're not practicing white supremacy, that is not the basis of how we're looking at this here. Racialization is different in different countries. For example, in Brazil, they don't view it as black and white. You have black and then many other shades and categories in between. And so blackness there is a different complex, but white supremacy is still in play in Brazil. In America, it's very cut and clear, black and white. In the UK, very cut and clear, black and white. But in different countries, especially in the Arab lands, there's some gray area there. But that does not mean white supremacy or Arab supremacy is not being practiced. So let's go here. During Bashir's decades-long autocratic rule, Arab militias armed by the government attacked the non-Arab residents of Darfur, killing them and burning their homes. Through the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, groups like Masalit farmers were uprooted from their lands. In response, rebel groups, mostly from the marginalized non-Arab tribes like the Masalits, Fur, and Zaghawa, rose up against Bashir in 2003. Bashir retaliated by unleashing the Arab militias known as the Janjaweed on the inhabitants of Darfur. The violence led to the deaths of an estimated 300,000 people by 2008, many from starvation. The RSF was born out of the Janjaweed. So the Janjaweed, basically like the SS, like Nazis, like Arab Nazis running around killing black people in the name of Arabizing Sudan. Absolutely horrible. And the RSF is a continuation of that evil process, of that evil system, of that evil group. And we are still seeing this happening today, yet and still people are silent. The International Criminal Court subsequently charged Bashir with crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide, and issued 2 warrants for his arrest. Sudan hasn't extradited Bashir. Because the ICC only tries suspects who are physically present at the court, his case remains in the pre-trial phase. Bashir has said that his government was putting down a rebellion, and he has denied the ICC charges, calling them politically motivated. Bashir was overthrown in a popular uprising in 2019. Before the war started, he was moved from prison to a military hospital. His current whereabouts are unknown, and he could not be reached for comment. The violence in the early 2000s and subsequent sporadic attacks on the Masalit by Arab militias drove large numbers of the tribe into camps for internally displaced people, many of them in El Janina. These camps were attacked this year by the RSF and its allies. The goal is to impoverish the nation, starve the people, displace them, and kill them, said Bahreddin, the Masalit Sultan, referring to his tribe. He spoke to Reuters in the Chadian capital of N'Djamena, where he fled amid the assault on El Jamina in June. This is a premeditated action by the RSF and Arab militias, he said. A genocide of the Masalit. Melanie O'Brien, a visiting professor at the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at the University of Minnesota, believes there is enough to call it a genocide. So even the white folks are coming out and saying, yeah, what the Arabs are doing in Sudan is genocide. Let's repeat. What the Arabs are doing in Sudan is genocide. The intent, she adds, is clear: to destroy the Masalit, at least in part. The targeting of adult Masalit men, O'Brien said, could be equated with the Serbian massacre of Bosnian Muslim boys and men of military age at Srebrenica in 1995. The courts held that was a genocide because it was a targeting of the male population of the Bosnian Muslims, she said. I would argue that the same thing applies here. Winning genocide convictions, however, is difficult, say international law experts. That's because prosecutors must prove suspects acted with intent to destroy a group in whole or part, a high hurdle. Families without fathers. One day in mid-November, at the request of Reuters, a Masalit community member a Masalit community leader drove through Orang, one of the refugee camps on the Chad side of the border with Sudan, making an announcement through a loudspeaker, the main means of mass communication in the camp. There is almost no mobile phone coverage in Orang. The community leader called upon women whose children had been killed in El Janina violence to meet the following day under a large neem tree to tell their stories. The next day at 9 a.m., dozens of women had gathered under the tree throughout the day. More continued to come. I hope these mothers find justice and peace for the loss of their children. It's absolutely horrible that these beautiful black sisters who are just trying to make a better life for themselves and take care of their families had to go through this horrible tragedy inflicted by these Arab militias who are hell-bent on inflicting Arab supremacist violence on people. And the world is silent, but I will not be silent. Dozens of Masalit women gathered under a neem tree at a refugee camp in eastern Chad to share their stories in November. More than 40 mothers described how their children, mostly boys, were killed by Sudan's RSF paramilitary and allied Arab militias. Many said they had lost children. Others said they came because members of their families, mostly men, husbands, brothers, fathers, had been killed or were missing. One woman said her 16-year-old son, her father, and her brother were all killed in April by RSF forces, gunned down in a neighbor's home where they had tried to hide. A second woman said Arab militiamen descended on a school in a displaced persons camp in El Janina, also in April, and opened fire on a group of men there, killing her father and one of her brothers. The next day, she said, they killed another of her brothers. A third woman described how 4 of her uncles were gunned down in the family home in Ardamata in early November. Her husband, a soldier in the Sudanese army, has been missing since then, she said. Rest in peace to all these brothers who lost their lives, whether they be soldiers or not. What we can all agree on is that children should not be suffering. Children should not be suffering in this war. And this specific targeting of a racialized group or ethnicized group in Sudan is absolutely wrong. We should all get behind that, right? We should all wave Sudanese flags, right? We should all start protesting in the streets for justice in Sudan, right? To stop the racist killing of black people in Sudan, right? But no. Nope, I'm sorry. We can only handle one conflict at a time, and we can only care when the people are sort of white. We can only care when the people are white, right? We don't care about the black Sudanese getting slaughtered, right? We're too busy waving that Palestinian flag or the Zionist Israeli flag. That's what we care more about, right? We don't actually care about black people being slaughtered in a systemic genocide that has taken place for decades in Sudan by Arab militias. Nobody cares, right? All right, let's continue here. They slaughtered him like an animal. Radia Yahya told of the killing of Abakar Abdullah, a 13-year-old boy she had been caring for since his mother died 7 years ago. They were with a group of refugees caught not far from the Chad border in June by armed men in Land Cruisers. Brandishing knives, automatic rifles, and wooden rods, the men encircled the group. They snatched Abu Bakr and two other boys and tied their hands behind their backs, said Yahya. Then they started stabbing the boys in the back. Yahya said she tried to intervene but fled behind bushes when the militiamen pointed their guns at her. After a few minutes, she came back to check what happened. Abakar and the other boys lay on the ground in pools of blood. They were all dead. Abakar had a deep wound across his throat, she said. They slit my son's throat, Yahya said in a faint voice, repeating the sentence over and over. She crouched on her knees and drew her hand across her neck. Like this, she said. They slaughtered him like an animal. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. This is hard for me to read. And I read a lot of stuff that is very graphic in detail, but this is definitely one of the most graphic stories I've ever read here on this channel. It breaks my heart that this is happening, and it breaks my heart even more that the world is silent about it. Absolutely silent. Gamal Abdel Rahman, the Orang community leader, estimated that 70% of the people in the camp are women and children, according to the UN figures. In Orang, there are almost twice as many women as men in the 1859 age category, 10,500 females and 5,300 males. All right, if there are any incels out there, if there are any people who find it hard to find a nice lady, all you have to do is go to Chad in Orang, and you can pick up a nice woman, nice Sudanese woman. She's ready. She probably has very good manners. She's very polite. She's not like Western women. If you really want a good woman, go out to Chad and, go to the refugee camps. There's plenty out there. I'm being facetious. I'm trying to find some light in this story. Anyway, in videos posted on social media during and after the November violence in El Janina, dozens of Masalite boys and men are shown being detained at locations in and around the city. Reuters has verified some of these videos. At least two of the videos show groups of men being forced by fighters in RSF uniforms and Arab militiamen to walk and run through fields in the direction of the airport in El Janina. Eyewitnesses have told Reuters that captives were tortured and executed at the airport. Another video previously reported by Reuters shows a group of men being held by armed fighters on a bridge in El Janina and being whipped. Absolutely horrible. I will not be playing the videos once again, but you know where to find them. Just look in the description of this video. Also, donations to this channel are very much appreciated, and the link to my PayPal is in the description as well. All right. In the first wave of violence in the city between April and June, many Masalite men said they left their wives and children and went into hiding to protect themselves and their families, knowing that the RSF and Arab militias were seeking out men. Some hid in ethnically mixed neighborhoods, while others took refuge in the Ardamata district near the Sudanese army base, only to be targeted again in the renewed attacks in November. Some said they managed to get to Chad by bribing Arabs along the way for help or paying Arab drivers to smuggle them through the checkpoints manned by militiamen. In some families, all the men were killed. Huda Ibrahim Ismail said she and her two teenage sons were with her husband when he was killed in El Janina on June 15th after RSF forces and Arab militiamen opened fire on a group of people in the city. Hours later, she and her two sons were part of a crowd that came under attack again by the RSF and Arab fighters. Absolutely horrible. Now, I know some people are going to try to, because there's evil in the world, and especially there's evil in my comment section, they're going to say, these women are lying. These women are making up stories. These women are just trying to get refugee status so they can go to Chad and then eventually go to Europe or America or something like that. You know what? Sure, maybe one, maybe two people are lying about this, but I don't think enough people would be lying about this that Reuters would cover a story. I don't think enough people would lie about their husbands, their brothers, their sons, their nephews being slaughtered by Arab supremacist racists who are calling them slaves and then beating their 2-year-old sons until they die. I don't think enough people would lie about that for Reuters to cover. I think they have pretty good reporting on Reuters. So for anybody who's going to say, yeah, these people are lying, they're lying, they're making up stories about their children being killed. Number one, look in the mirror and crash your head into it. That's the first thing you should do. And secondly, Get that hate out of your heart. Focus on anti-blackness in the world. Let's not get too hyped up about other people's conflicts, especially if you're black. Let's love black people. That is the message I have here today. So, as they fled the attack, Ismail said her sons Rashid, 19, and Sheriff, 17, were approached by a car carrying men in RSF uniforms. The boys made a run for it. The RSF men spotted them and gave chase. Ismail said she then watched as her sons were tied up and executed with gunshots to the head. I am on my own now, she said. I have no one. Absolutely horrible story. This was a very powerful story, very important story that needs to be told, and I wish more people heard about these stories. Prayers for Sudan, prayers for all the people in Sudan. We need to end the ethnic cleansing, the genocide committed by Arabs, modern-day genocide committed by Arabs in Sudan against black people right now. Right now. Period. We love all black people on this channel. We will always advocate for our people, and we will not stand up for other people's causes as long as they are silent on our causes. Everybody's waving flags for other nations right now. Where's that Sudanese flag? Where is that Sudanese flag? Anyway, my name is Simon Hill. Thank you for watching. This was a very dope story. Peace.